And that's the thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. It's never enough. You are never enough. You can't do enough. Being told you don't need to get a job. You don't need to go to college. You don't need to do anything but pioneer and go out in service and try to get closer to Jehovah, because 1975 Armageddon's coming. Period. So
I don't know what happened to my intro on my actual recording of this, so I may look a little bit different. I put on the same dress, but my makeup's different. I want to welcome you back to another episode of ExJW Women Speak Out. Today is an extra special episode for me because I actually got to interview my very own aunt. So a little backstory. My mom is from a very large, very devout Jehovah's Witness family. There were 7 siblings in total, and one of her sisters actually left before I was even born. I knew her only as the apostate aunt, which is truly just so sad to think about, since now I'm considered that in my own family as well. But when we left 2 years ago, she was the first person I actually reached out to because I figured she would have some good advice or some support she could offer, because she also left with her 2 small children. It has been truly an amazing thing to have her support, not only from her, but her entire family, and I'm truly thankful every day that we have them. So I want you all to please welcome my Aunt Patty. Aunt Patty, welcome.
thank you.
So to start off, why don't we talk a little bit about your background as a Jehovah's Witness, growing up in it, being in the big family you were in, and we'll kind of start at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I was in a very large family, 7 kids. We traveled a lot because my dad was always going to areas that didn't have a very large congregation to try to build the congregation up. So we moved a lot. And because we were extremely poor, it was always moving for work also. But so we never lived anywhere for very long. So basically, our family that was all I had really to associate with. Everywhere we went, I'm starting a new school, having to explain that I can't have friends. I can't go to their house. They can't come to my house. I can't do birthday parties, all that. It was a difficult upbringing, and especially for me. And I thought sometimes that it was just my personality that I had so many bad memories of my childhood. But I think it was just the stress of those 3 things: being very poor, moving all the time, and being a Jehovah's Witness, where you could never belong anywhere or be accepted anywhere because it just wasn't allowed.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing stories about your moving everywhere. I don't know how. Well, first of all, I don't know how your parents did it with so many kids in tow.
I know.
But as a kid, that would be so hard. It was hard enough. I grew up in the same school district. I never left that school district. It was hard enough to have to remind people every year if there was a new student that joined that I was a witness and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. But having to restart that so many different times, that would be horrible. I literally can't imagine how rough that would be as a kid.
It was really hard. It was really hard. And there was one time, I think we lived outside Chadron, that we went to a country school. And for some reason, my parents let us go spend the night at one of the girls in my class, her house. I got to go spend the night. I don't know why they let me do that time. And the whole time I was there, I was afraid demons were going to come and get me because I was with someone that I wasn't supposed to associate with. It's just weird in a little child's mind what you think as a Jehovah's Witness. The things that an adult can articulate and understand, a little child can't. And I especially took a lot of things literally that weren't really literal. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's just being a kid in the organization. You take it all so literal. I think that's why it creates so much anxiety and stress in small children, because we can't decipher the difference between maybe just a story in the Bible versus something that could really happen to you. And it's very stressful.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you were number 2 of the 7 siblings, correct? I got that
3.
Right.
I was number 3. Robin was before me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I always get you and Robin always confused as far as who was after Mom. Okay. So, how old were you when you were baptized? I don't think I know that one either.
I was 13.
Okay, you
were
were 13.
13 when I was baptized. Yeah.
Me too.
It was a big thing. It was a big thing to me getting baptized. It was an opportunity. I thought it was going to be an opportunity to ask questions that, because I had a lot of weird little doubts that pop up in my head as a kid. And so I thought, I'm going to study, because there was a book back then that we had to study with somebody before we got baptized, and one of the publications. And I studied it with my sister Pam, your mom. And I wasn't allowed to ask the questions. I was shut down every time I asked something that was a doubt in my head, that that didn't make sense to me. Take that scripture out of context to answer this question I'm asking, where what was going on in the Bible at that time had nothing to do with what I'm asking you about. And so it was tough for me, but I stuffed all that down, because that was what I was supposed to do, was get baptized, and I did it. And then I remember my parents didn't. Our baptism was at a convention, but we had to go to a different site to go to the pool to get baptized, and my parents didn't go. And that broke my heart, because I thought, like, this is supposed to be like the most important thing in my life, and you didn't even show up for it.
That's
It
insane.
was traumatic. Yeah. Yeah.
Why didn't they go? Was it just because there are too many kids to haul to your baptism, or
Well,
do you know what their reasoning was?
they never explained it. Possibly that it was just too hard to get everybody over there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
That
don't
is
know. But that was my whole childhood, is like, I felt invisible. Like, we weren't really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Grandpa was always like very involved in the congregation and always very in the middle of everything. I mean, he was, I think, an elder into his 80s, if I remember right, still, until he had to step down because of his health declining. And it's like, listening to, obviously I wasn't there, but listening to stories from my mom, it felt very much like, I think Grandma was on her own raising all the kids, and he was busy with the congregation. And at some point, when you have that many kids as a mom, she probably just sort of, I'd imagine, checked out in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
I felt like she's checked out my whole
yeah,
childhood. But I do not have a close relationship with my mom, because I feel like she never really showed us kids a whole lot of love growing up. I felt
mm,
that more from my dad, but he wasn't there all the time. But when he was there, he was engaged, and
yeah,
my mom was not with us very much.
yeah,
But that was just, that probably had nothing to do with the religion. That was just the life we were living. So,
yeah,
but yeah, my dad was very busy. And as a teenager, I got very jealous, because he would like go to the lake with other brothers and sisters that he was trying to bring into the congregation, like the people he was studying with, trying to bring them in. All of them, they came before his own children, and he didn't plan anything for our family. It was always to do stuff with other people. And I was very jealous, especially as a teenager. I needed his attention, I think, and wasn't getting it, because that was when I really started struggling being a witness. So,
yeah. I think that's an issue within the organization in general, is these men who reach out and their families end up getting ignored. And it's like,
mhm.
I don't know. Lance never was one to want to reach out in the organization, even when we were like fully in and fully like believed everything. Because in his mind, he was like, I need to be focused on my wife and once we started having babies, like my children. And I wish more men would have that mentality, especially when your kids become teenagers, because that's when it gets very hard. Um,
Yeah.
my dad was removed when my sister got disfellowshipped, I think, or right before she got disfellowshipped. And like, he wasn't an elder for a while, which I appreciated, because I think he saw his kids needed him more than the congregation did. But I don't think that's very common, sadly. I think most men continue to still serve, and I don't know if they get some sort of extra glory from it or what. I don't really get it. But
I don't either, but
um,
I think also for a lot of them, it's just what they're supposed to do. If you
yeah,
were raised in the truth, you don't know that other people take more enjoyment with their family and their family time. That you don't know
yeah,
that, you know. But my
yeah,
parents,
that's true.
they didn't become witnesses till they were in their late teens. So
Okay.
they should have, they knew the other life.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah. So that brings up some questions that I still don't know the full history. So they came in their teens.
Hmm.
Grandpa's mom was a witness as well, right? Did she come in around the same
Yeah.
time? Okay.
Yes, that's why they became witnesses. I think their mothers did.
Okay.
My
So,
my mom's mother did, and my
okay.
dad's mother did.
Okay.
My parents had very difficult home lives, and I won't tell their story because it's not my place to tell it. But
Yeah.
they had very difficult home lives, and they basically were raised by single moms.
That's rough. Yeah, I know there's some sadness there. So okay, so they came in their teens. That's another thing. I wish more people would understand what it's like to be a tiny child raised in this, because
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard to have pressure on you from a very young age. Like you said, those things that terrify you so much. Like the fact that you were with a friend thinking you were gonna like be demons were gonna show up because you were with somebody who wasn't worshiping
yeah,
Jehovah, or like these things that are just, they stick with you. They mold you as who you are as a person. I'm a very anxious human, and I know for a fact it's because of my upbringing. I was always just
yeah,
so nervous and anxious, and I'm a people pleaser. And I think that just all these things that like kind of can be flaws that are, I think, from an upbringing of being born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Um, so you were baptized at 13. Um, at what age were you married then? Were you a young person getting married? Were you a little bit older? I know my mom was technically older.
yeah. We got married the same day, your mom and I.
I know.
Yeah, I got married in the
Yeah.
morning. She got married in the afternoon. I got married. I was 20 when I got married.
Okay. Okay. And my mom was 23, wasn't she? Is that how old she was? I feel like that's what her age
24,
was.
I think. Yeah,
Okay.
24. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember her always being proud of the fact that she was older getting married, and didn't like that her daughters both got married as
Well,
teenagers.
in the truth, everybody got married really young because you can't have sex before marriage. You're not actually, you couldn't even date back when
Yeah.
I was there. I don't know what it's like now, but we weren't allowed to date or anything. So you basically got married to, and it was your way to have a life outside your parents' home, and
Yeah.
I don't
I
know, because that
kind of
was
an
just what you
escape.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an escape. It
Yeah.
was.
I don't think that's changed. I feel like, um, obviously, I married Lance because I loved him, but at the same time, I think most people view it as an escape from home, a
Mhm.
chance to finally like have some freedom and be independent. Because especially as a woman or a girl, you are still very much subjected to your parent and everything that they want you to be and do. And it's like finally your chance to kind of spread your wings and become independent and figure out who you are as a person.
Right.
Um, so you were married at 20. Tell
Hmm.
me a little bit about, you mentioned earlier you were already kind of like having some doubts even as like that 13-year-old studying to become
Hmm.
baptized. What were some of those doubts that started creeping in early on?
Well, I think the 1975 date was huge for me because so many. I had a lot of doubts about, like, I didn't understand, like, Valentine's Day, why that was bad. There was never any mention of anything like that. It was, I mean, we could, you couldn't do anything that was a holiday. And they would find some roots in back somewhere where some god was worshipped that made it wrong, or something that Jesus said it made wrong, or John the Baptist's head was chopped off for somebody's birthday, so nobody can have a birthday. It's like those things did not make sense to me as a child. They
Mm-hmm.
just didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand why that was so evil. Why couldn't you have the cupcake at the school? I mean, just because it was her birthday, I'm not celebrating her birthday. I'm just eating the cupcake.
Yeah.
And we never had that stuff at home, so it's like I wanted one. It was like those things were hard for me to wrap my head around, why it was such a sin in Jehovah's eyes. I couldn't see that, so I carried that with me. But then
Mm-hmm.
but by the time I was in junior high, I started to really struggle just with my unhappiness. I was so unhappy being a witness, and I couldn't really put a finger on it, but I just hated that life. And I remember I was in a PE class where it was a health class, and we were studying about mental health issues. And the teacher said, look around you, at all the people around you, because 1 out of 3 of you will have a mental health issue in your lifetime. And then the following year, I went from that school, which was junior high, to a high school, which was about 3 miles away. And I really was struggling. And I ended up walking all the way back to the junior high to find that teacher to tell her I have that mental health problem. I need help. But I couldn't find that teacher. So I just, like you always do as a JW, you just go back and tamp it all down inside of you and keep on keeping on being a good little Jehovah's Witness. And it was, those were my teen years were really dark and difficult for me. And it was really hard. I really acted out as a sophomore is when I really acted out. So I like, in my feelings, I lived two lives. I went home and I was the good little daughter that did everything right, studied and everything. Then I'd go to school, and back then we wore mini skirts, so I'd roll my skirt up and have a mini skirt at school and pretend to be somebody else. And I hung out with a really bad crowd, which I don't quite understand why, but I would ditch classes at school and go out in the parking lot and hang out with them. And I mean, they smoked dope, and that was the kind of crowd. I didn't do any of that, but I just wanted to be with them. It was like my big rebellion, I think.
Yeah.
And I snuck out of the house twice to meet a guy. And here I am. I'd never held hands with a boy. I'd never been alone with a boy. I'd never kissed a boy. And I'm so naive and stupid. And I'm sneaking out and meeting this boy who was 20 years old and a senior in high school. So you knew he was like a loser.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. And but I did it because it was just like some kind of rebellion. I needed to do it, but it didn't take me long. I mean, I stuck out twice and then knew I didn't want that. That's not what I wanted. I just didn't want to be a witness, but I could not articulate that at that time. So,
Yeah.
So then I quit doing that. But it was really right after that we moved to Julesburg, because my sisters got caught sneaking out too, and they were meeting guys from the Air Force Base, Robin and Pam. And so my parents were like, "We have to get out of here."
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. My mom never told me any of this stuff about her rebellious stage. She always claimed that she was like
your mom was
the perfect daughter.
She was very good at playing the perfect daughter. I was always the one that was considered like the wild one, but I really wasn't.
Yeah.
But I was very bold about and upfront about any of my rebellion or my feelings of defiance. And your mom was very the perfect daughter, everybody wanted their son to date her and everything because she was the perfect little Jehovah's Witness girl. But behind the scenes, she was not so much. But I mean, that's just better.
She was better at living the double life, which
yes, she was. She
got paybacks with her daughters because we were the same way. So,
all three of us girls, Robin, Pam, and I, all ended up marrying boys from this area that were not witnesses, who then studied the Bible and got baptized in order to marry us. So so all of our spouses were not raised as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. And that's one thing I struggle with the most with my own dad. I've talked about this a lot on my YouTube channel. Like, I hoped he would give me some grace and be more loving, I guess, when we left, because he wasn't raised in it. And because he still has relationships with his family that are considered worldly and not Jehovah's Witnesses. But, the organization just doesn't like people who leave and speak out. So that's a story for another day. But it's interesting you bring out, you wanting to be rebellious. I think in general, being rebellious as a teenager is just kind of normal. You tend to push your boundaries. You tend to kind of test the water to see how far you can go. The difference with being a Jehovah's Witness for those who weren't raised in it is like a whole different level of having to live a double life, because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to talk to elders. You don't want to, risk a judicial committee. So you get really good at hiding, who you were. I actually recorded a video with Lance, and he was very rebellious. He was way worse than I was. And he mentioned how it would be so much better if you could trust your parents to just go to them and be like, I did something stupid. I messed up. And you could just work it out with your family and be done with it.
Right.
But as a witness, you have that added layer of like, well, now you have to go talk to the elders and you have to sit in front of three men and tell them what you've done. It's like you don't feel like you actually have a support system in your parents. You feel like they're almost the enemy because you're terrified of them turning you into the elders.
Right.
Um,
And
which,
and and all your fellow brothers and sisters, because they all love to be narcs. I mean, everybody loves to tell on you and get people in trouble. I hated that about the witnesses, that
yeah,
they couldn't wait to tell.
yeah,
And when I left, that happened a lot because I tried to just, what you guys call fade now, we called it like disassociate back then.
mm-hmm.
And everything I did would get reported to the elders, and then they would call me and have to have a meeting about it, and blah blah blah. And it was really difficult till I was to got to the point where I was just forced to say, we just don't want to be witnesses anymore. You know,
Yeah.
I
I feel
didn't
like,
want to be disfellowship, but
yeah, well, they make that difficult. Before we go into your story of leaving, I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned 1975 being a doubt of yours.
big,
Um,
huge.
I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about living during that time frame of that 1975, because today Jehovah's Witnesses claim the fact that they said it was the end during 1975 wasn't true. That was never something even
Oh,
said. And I know that that's a big lie that they've tried to bury. So I would love to hear some firsthand experience about how old were you during that time? Like, was it truly like them saying like stay alive to 75? Like, tell me a little bit about all of that.
yeah. Well, that was my reality. We grew up being told you don't need to get a job, you don't need to go to college, you don't need to do anything but pioneer and go out in service and try to get closer to Jehovah, because 1975 Armageddon's coming. Period. So when we moved to Julesburg, where I live now, we were I was it was the summer before I was going to be a senior, and my parents told me, do not go to school. You don't need to finish school. Armageddon's coming next year. You don't need to go to school. And I loved school, not because I liked being there, because I didn't like the social part of it because it was painful to go to school as a Jehovah's Witness. But I loved the learning part of it, and the fact that you could go to the library and read any publication you wanted to, and there was no censoring. There was nobody telling you that you can't read that's going to lead you away from Jehovah or whatever. And I loved learning. And I'm like, no, I'm going to school. And but then I thought, okay, I don't have to make any plans after school. I graduated in 1974. Armageddon was coming in the following year, so I didn't have to. I thought, I don't have to do anything, just survive through this.
Yeah.
And I can remember talking to a boy at school and him telling me, the world has gone on and on and on, and there's always been people who said it's going to be the end of the world. It doesn't happen. He goes, why do you believe that? And I thought, why do I believe that? I mean, why is that date out there? I don't even know why they thought that date. Nobody ever told me why that date was the date they came up with. And then when 75 came and went and it didn't happen, and then they're saying, oh, they could have calculated wrong. It could be 20 years later. It's like, what? That was a huge, like, yeah, I think maybe that they don't know what they're talking about Armageddon. And I think it was the scriptures would tell us that nobody's going to know the time is probably
Mm-hmm.
more accurate. So,
Yes.
so that's kind of what that was a huge doubt, especially when it came and went and nothing happened. And then I'm like, I'm 19 years old, and what am I going to do with my life? Because only choice I had was to pioneer or get married. And at that time, my husband was he'd gone on to college, but he was still pursuing me and wanted to get married. And so I kind of I really cared about him, but I was worried that it wasn't going to work because of him. I knew that he was a Jehovah's Witness so that we could get married. He went to college and studied at college with a brother there in Chadron so that he could get baptized so that we could get married. But I do think that if he had been treated differently, he probably would have stayed a Jehovah's Witness and as long as I wanted him to. But he was so disrespected because he would not go out in the service. That was one thing he wouldn't do. He said he would do anything, but he won't go door to door. And that's just a no-no. So all of his privileges were taken away. Nobody was supposed to associate him because he's a weak brother,
Yeah.
bad association.
That's
So,
insane. It's absolutely insane. Yeah. I think it just goes to show if you don't fall into line with the organization and their man-made rules, you are
Right.
ostracized and you are treated terrible. It's just it's not the loving organization they claim it is, which is just too bad that
No,
people can't
no.
truly see that.
In fact,
Um,
I never even understood unconditional love until I married. Through his family, I saw unconditional love. That doesn't exist in the organization. And his family was so sad that he had made this choice to become a Jehovah's Witness and that we weren't going to celebrate holidays with him. Holidays were huge for them. And but they loved him anyway. And they supported him and his decision and respected his boundaries. And I saw, for the first time in my life, I saw that, well, this is really loving your children.
I hate that because I didn't really experience that until we left. Like I thought my parents loved me, and then you realize how conditional the love is in that organization, whether it's your parents, your siblings, your friends that you think you know well. It's like, no, they only love you for as much as you give that organization. And it's just disturbing. And that's what was kind of eye opening for us when we had kids. So it's like, I'm never going to shun my child. I'm never going to make them sit in front of elders. I'm not going to let them die because of the no blood doctrine. So then
Right.
it's like, what's left? Why am I staying here? Like, I don't abide by the majority of what they do and say. So it's just crazy. So, um, tell me, you got married at 20. Then how long were you guys still Jehovah's Witnesses before you started trying to fade and get away from the organization?
I think my kids were pretty small. Um, it was kind of like my husband was fading pretty soon after we were married, after we had kids. We were pretty strong till after we had kids, and then my husband started to fade, and he just didn't want to go to the meetings. He'd only go once in a while, and it made me like double down. Okay, if he's not going to do it, I have to do more. So I started going to all the meetings, studying with my kids twice a week, studying with myself twice a week. Then I started pioneering, thinking this is going to help me be a stronger witness for my children. And it was during that time that I was pioneering that I it was like the last straw, the last thing. So there was a brother in our congregation who was not a very good person, and he was an elder and had held a lot of power in that congregation. And he was always complaining about little kids. He even locked doors in the Kingdom Hall so little kids couldn't go into certain rooms, and about how they behaved. And I'm with two little toddlers trying to pioneer. At that time, I had to put in 100 hours a month and going out in service. These kids are whining and crying all the time because they're in a hot, stuffy car. You know, they're tired. They want to take a nap. They want a bottle, whatever. And we're in the car with him. And I know this man from what his children had told me about him, that he wasn't a good person. I knew that he was abusive. I knew he was a sexual deviant. I knew he was a horrible man in his home. And my kids are whining and crying, and he tells me, listen, I need to come to your house and I need to teach you how to discipline your children because you don't know what you're doing, and your children should not be behaving like this. They should be sitting there quietly waiting for us to get done with our service. And I don't, something snapped in me, and I'm like, you are not going to get within a foot of my children. You will never step foot in my home. I thought of horrible words, I think, at the time, too. It's like, no, I don't want you near my family. And then I thought, what in the world? Why does Jehovah let somebody like that have a position of power in this organization and do this he devastated me. I'm trying so hard to be a good witness. Can't you see how hard I'm trying? And that's the thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. It's never enough. You are never enough. You can't do enough to be okay. You're always lacking. And I think I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this to my kids. I don't want to do it to me. So that's when my fade started. But my fade was a little slower. I think I probably still went to the meetings. At that time, we had meetings 3 times a week, and I still tried to go on Sundays, I think. But then we got to the point where I was hardly ever going, and I would get calls from the elders wanting to meet with me, and I didn't want to meet, so I just avoided them most of the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to leave without getting disfellowship because I didn't want to lose that connection to my family. But it's pretty impossible to do
It
that.
is. It absolutely is. They don't make it easy.
No.
I mean, now they've kind of lightened, if you want to say that, their rules a little bit. So if you're disfellowshipped and you're making an attempt to come back, they can at least like say hello to you. I know some people have been to that role a little bit to be able to talk with their kids a little bit more, their family members more. But the bottom line is if you decide to walk away or leave, you're going to lose your family in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
so
devastating at the time it happens.
it is. It is. You guys left, and you mentioned how you tried to fade.
Mm-hmm.
I think you kind of told me a little story how you wrote. Didn't they have you write a letter saying you no longer want to be a
Yeah,
Jehovah's
that
Witness?
was
Yeah.
that was bizarre. So we were fading, and there was a few things that we did that were worthy of being disfellowshipped, I suppose. We had gone to his parents' church once. They took my kids to their church a few times. We were celebrating a little bit holidays and birthdays, but not really. We were like, we would go to his mother's house and do it. We wouldn't really do it at our house. We didn't really have a big celebration at our house and stuff, but we were doing a few things like that. So I got a phone call that they needed to meet with us, and I said, we don't want to. We've just decided that we don't want to be witnesses anymore. We just want to live our life, and we don't want to do anything wrong, but we don't want to be a witness. And he said, well, if you don't want to be disfellowshipped, then you need to write a letter to the Kingdom Hall, to the elders there, and tell them that. And when I did that, they used that letter to disfellowship me. That was what they used to disfellowship me. So it
That's
was
insane.
bizarre. Yeah. So I heard about it. Somebody called me. Probably somebody in the congregation couldn't wait to let me know that I was disfellowshipped. I can't remember who it was. And then shortly after that, I got the letter from my mom, which sounded like it was similar to the letter you got from your mom. It broke me because it was basically, you're no longer our daughter. Your kids are not our grandchildren. You have chosen death. You have the devil in you. You have Satan in you. She said that your kids will probably going to have children out of wedlock and be on drugs and everything. And this did happen in my family, but it was okay. I mean, you live through it. You love your child through those difficult times, and that was the one thing with me, is that I was determined to give my children unconditional love. I don't care what they did. I would have been there for them, not necessarily supported what they were doing or what they did, but I would be there for them, and I would help them in the situation. And I did. My kids now are grown in their 40s. They have a love of the Lord in their heart. They're both Christians. They're very spiritually motivated, and have raised their kids that way. And so I feel like I did my job as a parent, and I raised my kids to love God, and to recognize that Jesus died for us. And I think that's what you have to do. I don't think you have to follow all these silly regulations and rules and guidelines and principles and whatever they want to call them, that force a person to be less than all the time. And my kids are healthy and fine, but they did go through some difficult times. But that's part of the fire that we go through to become the strong people we become.
No, absolutely. I believe any trials you go through, any mistakes you make, mold you into a better person, usually in the long run, as long as you learn from them. Obviously, there's people who don't. But
Right.
I think when you have a parent or parents who love you and support you through those, that's the most important thing. And that's
Right.
what usually makes those into learning experiences that just make you a better person. So once you were announced as fellowshipped, tell me a little bit about, was it an instant, like, shunned across the board from every
Oh yeah,
sibling? Um, and
yeah,
then I know I think I saw you maybe a couple times growing up. I know, like, at Grandma Grace's funeral, I believe I saw you.
yeah. Went
Um,
to grandma's funeral. That's the first time I'd gotten to talk to my siblings. They let me come to the funeral. And I remember my one brother telling me, "Oh, now they don't have a meeting on one of the nights, so you only have to go to 2 meetings a week." Like that was going to get me to come back. It's like it wasn't about the meetings, people. I would have gone every day of the week if I would have
yeah,
thought that I needed to in order to
yeah,
have God's approval. But I don't think you do.
no,
But yeah, that was that. And then you guys came to a ball game. My son was in a football game close
okay,
to where you lived, and you guys came to the football
okay,
game to see your cousin, and that surprised me. They didn't talk to me. They sat across away from us, but you guys were there. So and we did
okay,
take pictures of you guys when you were there.
okay.
That
I
was the
don't
two
remember
times
that.
I remember. Yeah, those are the two times I remember seeing you.
Okay,
But
I do
very,
remember Grandma
very
Grace's
seldom.
funeral. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Very
just,
seldom.
it's so sad. Like, let's talk a little bit about, because I do have quite a few, like, people that watch these videos that have never been a Jehovah's Witness, and I strongly feel that they just can't fully wrap their head around what the shunning looks like.
I
Like you
totally
just
agree.
mentioned, you were, like, at the same game and they wouldn't even speak to you. Like,
Right.
it's so extreme. Like, it may, some people may be like, there's no way it's really that bad. No, it's really that bad. Like, you could be in
It
the
is.
same room as them and they won't look at you, they won't talk to you, they act like you're a complete stranger.
I just realized that was how people were, because when I left, I had a need to talk about it. I really needed to talk about it. I had a little bit of a breakdown a couple years after I left, and my husband made me go get therapy because he was concerned about me, and um, I thought I need to talk about it. So I was invited to talk about it at our church that we were going to. And so I gave this little talk about it. And I realized looking out there at all those faces, they don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They can't imagine a life where anybody would do that to their own family.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't help to talk to people really that hadn't been there. I needed to talk to someone who would. But people that left back then, man, you didn't want anybody to know that. You just kind of wanted to melt away and nobody even know that that you'd been a Jehovah's Witness or that
Yeah.
you were disfellowshipped. It was weird back then. It was different, I think. It's been 40 years since
Yeah.
I was disfellowshipped. So, but yeah, I don't think people that haven't been a Jehovah's Witness can understand the magnitude of the rejection that you receive. And if you have no connection outside the organization, it can just totally devastate you. And a lot of people turn away from God because of it. I mean, they just don't want anything to do with God because of the pain that they suffer. And I saw that a lot too from people who left.
I think you still see that a lot as well. And it's like, you can't really blame them.
No,
Especially, like you said, if you have no outside connections, you're literally just thrown out into the world and being like, everything you've known is crumbling, everything you thought you knew is crumbling. So it kind of makes sense that you would totally just, like, any ties, even that if that is a relationship with God, you're just like, I don't want this, I don't want anything to do with this, I'm done,
yeah,
I don't want it. um and, like, I know when we left, we never had that feeling. We were just very much of the mindset that, maybe we just don't need to know God. Maybe God doesn't want to know us. I don't know. We were, like, very much like, no pressure on us. We never didn't
mm-hmm.
believe that there wasn't a higher power or God. We just kind of, I think we almost needed a reset of, like, what we were taught, how we were taught is not the right way and not the true God of being, how he handles things, how he feels. And as we've healed, it's pulled us back towards him. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for examples like you who never gave up on God and always had a relationship with him, and just seeing, like, your whole family
Well,
has been healing for us.
yeah, but not always did I have a
Okay.
relationship with him, because when I first left, I went into a very black place and I felt like that Jehovah had abandoned me. And my thing was, I just wanted my kids to have a normal life. but I didn't think I could ever have a normal life because I was so messed up from being a witness that. So I was not in a healthy place, and actually contemplating. I kept thinking if I was gone, my husband would remarry and my kids would have a normal mom. They would have a normal life with a normal mom. And so I started to plan how that could happen. But before I could come up with a plan that was foolproof, because I didn't want my kids to ever find me, and I did, I was didn't want to like survive a car wreck and then whatever. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. And before that could happen, I feel like Jehovah intervened because I had people come into my life that changed my life forever. When during that time when I was actually planning how to die, I we're farmers and had cattle, and I was supposed to take 2 steers to the sale barn. And while I was there, I had my little tiny kids with me, and this horse and colt came through the sale barn, and my kids wanted it, and I'm like, I'm not going to be here, so I'm going to buy it. I'm going to get it from my kids because I won't be here. And so I got it, took it home. My husband had a fit and said, you have to get rid of it. So he called the neighbor whose wife had been looking for one, and she came over. She was a Mennonite. And she came over and we instantly clicked, and we just were visiting and stuff. And she wanted me to come over to her house the next day because she was making some kind of a pastry. She wanted to show me how to make it. And I didn't have any friends at all because I was now outside the organization. And if I walked into the grocery store and they saw me, they'd turn their back on me and walk down the other aisle. So I went to her house and we got to talking, and she started talking about her faith and her love of God and how strong it was. And she asked me something about coming back in a couple of weeks or something. She was going to do something, and I told her I probably wouldn't be here. And I just told her, I don't know why. I just told her that I don't want to be here anymore. And I said, nobody will care. Nobody will miss me. My kids will get over it. They're so young, they'll forget. And she said, no, I will care. And I've only known you for one day. So it was like, and she became a lifelong friend who taught me that it doesn't matter what denomination you are, you can have God in your life. I met her, I met a Mormon, and I met a Lutheran that were all very strong examples of women in faith. And they all showed me that it doesn't matter what denomination you are, that you can have God in your life and that he loves you and he comes to you. And then I'm like, yeah, it took me a while to realize it, but I look back on it and go, yeah, he brought her into my life to keep me here because he loved me enough that he wanted me to be here to raise my kids, which I got to do. So yeah, it was not like I always had God there, but he came to me. He didn't leave me. And when I was rejected by everybody, the one person who didn't reject me was Jehovah. He always came and found me where I was at and took care of me. So that's why I still believe and have faith in him. But I don't have faith in any organized religions per se. I just believe that the true religion is in our hearts. It's between us and God and Jesus.
I fully believe in that too. That's kind of where I'm at. I think.
Now I'm tearing. Not good.
I know, me too. I'm trying to compose myself. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just thankful you're still here too, because we needed you.
And I was. That's the first thing I thought when you reached out to me is, thank goodness I'm here for her, because this is going to be hard for her.
Yeah. No. I think just more proof God works in so many ways. Okay, let me get composure. No, I think it's important that you talk about that, because sadly, there are so many who do follow through with their plans because they just can't fathom life being shunned. They can't handle the pain of that. And I think that is why, sharing stories and why I do what I do is so important, because people need to know they're not alone. And
even if it's a random stranger online, somebody's walked the same path as you and has gone through the same thing as you, and they've come out on the other side and they're better now and they're okay now.
Right.
And it's just very sad that so many people just feel that hopelessness. And I don't know, I just get very angry about the way this organization treats people, and it's very wrong.
Me too.
And you know, again, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want to shed light on that, not only for those in and leaving, but for those not in. If you encounter somebody who is left, treat them with love and kindness. Be like those friends you met that help these people see that they can have a good life, they can live a wonderful life, they can have God in their lives, they can, you know, they can still live a fulfilled life despite the pain of leaving that and losing family. So,
Right.
yeah.
And you're still going to have pain in life. That's just part of life. But you can have a wonderful, wonderful life.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I have learned to accept that the loss really was my family's, that I wasn't a part of them. I'm sad that I didn't know any of my nieces and nephews. That's really sad to me. But yet the loss was on their side for not, I don't know, at least making some way to continue to have a connection, and they just won't. I mean, it's just totally shut down. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, that's kind of, I've learned to kind of view it that way as well. It's like everybody has free will, everyone has a choice.
Right.
They could choose to go around the rules, even if it's quietly and they just want to still be around you without others knowing. I don't care. I mean, that's your choice. But again, when you come from a very devout family, like your side was, my mom is, apparently my sister and my dad are now too. It's like, you've made that choice. This is on you. You can't blame anyone but yourself. And I can go to bed every night knowing it's not my fault. It's on them. And it's their loss. It really is, sadly.
It is. One of the things that people don't talk about, because I very often, which I think needs to be talked about, is the grandchildren or the children that when you leave, that are affected by it and deeply affected by it. And my daughter was, for years, we decided after we were disfellowshipped to join a church, just because I wanted my kids to feel like I wanted them to have like a church like what they call church family, where they had people that they would go and worship Jehovah with. And so we did it. And my daughter didn't like it. And she wouldn't stand up when they stood up and sang and stuff. She wouldn't do it because she thought she was doing something bad. And my daughter was 6. So she'd already been really indoctrinated. And so it took her a long time to accept that she could do that and be of a different faith and be okay. And she was always the one that was always wanting to make it all right with Grandma and Grandpa. And she wanted to, when she moved to Greeley right after she got married, she wanted to see them and stuff. She always wanted that connection. Now, my son grew up angry at them. How could they reject them? He said he invited them to everything. We always sent them, for anything that he was doing, we would send him an invitation, graduation, everything that he did. We sent, when he got married, even everything. And of course, they don't go to any of them. And so his is anger. And I think he still feels some of that anger toward them, that they rejected us like that was such a cruel thing to do. And they saw the pain I went through too, even though they were little. Those kids are affected deeply by the actions of the witnesses who follow the doctrine of how you treat a disfellowship person. And those kids are innocent. And I understand your point too, that you can't let them connect, because as soon as you do, they try to insist that everything you're doing is wrong, and they need to come back and be in the truth to be okay. And you can't have them doing that to your little kids either. So it's a difficult situation for those children. But my heart goes out to all those kids, my kids too, what they suffered because of this religion.
No, I agree. There are victims in it as well. Um, the fact that either they can't have a normal relationship if there is a relationship there at all, because again, they feel either guilt or anger towards those family members, or like in our situation where there's not even a whisper of a relationship anymore. I know my kids will grow and have their own feelings about this whole situation, and it's just sad. There's so many victims in
Yeah, there is.
leaving this organization, and it's unfortunate. But the beauty is when you finally get out, you get to choose your path you go on. You get to choose how you live your life. You get to choose how to raise your children without those constraints and without the guilt and the manipulation that comes with that organization. So it's one of those things where it's painful, but at the same time it's worth leaving, so you're not trapped in that organization being filled with
Right.
lies and told you're good for nothing every meeting, that
Yeah.
you're useless.
Never good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
other thing
Yeah.
you gotta realize too is they put those hooks in you really early on. Like my daughter was so little and she already had them, and it's guilt and fear.
Yep.
The two things they hook you with. And they'll tug on those hooks all the time to get your attention. And even I'm out 40 years, and sometimes, I feel guilty for the pain I put my parents through, or I don't feel guilty about leaving like I did something wrong, but they'll pull on those, that because that's implanted in you at such a young age when you're a Jehovah's Witness. And I think it's a tactic by the organization to control.
It absolutely is. That's one of the, I don't know if you've ever looked, and I talk about it a lot on my channel, the bite model on like how cults and high control religions work. But a huge tactic is that emotional pull, that like feeling of guilt. Like it's just a huge tactic to keep you under their control. And it's unfortunate, but it's something I don't think you ever, like you said, you don't ever let that go fully. You will always have some part of you that feels that guilt for putting your parents through it, or your whatever it may be. So it's just unfortunate. If you could give advice to somebody who is leaving now, trying to leave, in the process of like that doubting or questioning, what would your advice be if you could give them any advice?
Well, definitely to use all of these avenues of support that you guys have now, the platforms that you have out there that I didn't have, because that would have helped me a lot not to feel so alone, but to not doubt yourself. And if you're leaving, it's because you are intelligent. I can tell you that, because you're intelligent enough to know that something isn't right, that it's not, it's not, the math's not working. so trust that, trust your gut, and get the support you need, and let it take time, because it's not going to happen overnight. I had nightmares for years that I'd have nightmares that Armageddon was coming. And I was like, one of my nightmares was we'd be at the swimming pool, because I used to take my kids there in the afternoons. We'd go to the library and then go to the pool. And I would be at the pool and my kids are swimming, and I had to find them because the sky was lighting up, because Armageddon was coming, and I had to save them. I had to help them. And that was those were all my mind processing through all of those fears and stuff they stuffed down inside of me all those years. It takes time to sort through all that, and to get to the other side where you're comfortable with the decision you made, and that you're okay. And so it's not like you're going to be like, I'm going to leave, I'm going to get this fellowship, it's going to hurt a little bit, and then I'll be fine. No, it takes time. And I think like you doing what you're doing, Alissa, is helping you process that. Talking to other people and hearing their stories and understanding the journey, it's helping you process that. And I think, I get on all these sites all the time now and listen. My husband's like, why do you have to listen to all that? And I'm like, because it resonates with me, and it makes me feel good that people are going to be okay that are leaving now, and that they have this, and I like to hear their stories.
Yes.
So yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's so, I feel like the more you talk about it, the better it is. And that doesn't have to be in a social media platform, but even in a circle of friends, or
Mhm.
if you go to a church or whatever it may be, a therapist even, the more you
That's,
talk about it, the more you can process it, the more you can heal. It's, I think, going to be a lifetime of healing. I don't think you're ever going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm fine. I wasn't raised
yeah.
in an organization that I'm now being shunned by everyone I love. It's a lifetime of healing. But I think the more you heal, the easier it is to, like, when you have those moments of doubt, those moments of pain, those moments of, feeling guilt or whatever it may be, it's easier to process those and move past them quicker.
Yeah.
At least I've experienced that even in just the couple of years we've been out and the healing I've done. So, yeah, I really appreciate you telling your story and sharing it with everybody. Is there anything else you want to remark on or talk about before we sign off and say your goodbyes? Is there anything you want to say about life outside that can give people hope as well? Like something you love to do now? I know you're like me and we love our holidays.
Yeah. Oh yeah, holidays are huge in my house now. It's like I'm making up for all the years I didn't get to have a holiday. So we have our all of our holidays are huge, and everybody comes home. And that was the one thing I always told my kids: everybody has to come home for Christmas, because I never had Christmas. So until I'm gone, we're all going to have Christmas together. So holidays are
Love
big in
it.
my house, and I have no qualms about that at all. But also, I was able to do things that I never would have been able to do. I've taught dance. I taught dance for probably about 20 years, and I have had my own business that I ran. I've written books. I write a lot. I've been able to tap into all of my talents, my God-given talents that I was given from God, and to use them. I paint, and honestly, when you're a witness, that you're not allowed to pursue those interests, because it's like being selfish, and you gotta your objective has got to be to serve Jehovah, not to be doing anything that selfishly promotes you. You can't ever promote yourself at all. You can never be proud of yourself. That's so sad, because sometimes you need to be proud of who you are, and every one of us has a God-given talent. It might not be, you know, huge, but we all have things that we're good at, or things that we love to do, or that we love to share with people. And
Yep.
so enjoy that when you leave. Enjoy that, and pursue those things, and live your life to the fullest. I'm going to be 70 this year, so I'm towards the end of mine, but I have been able to do all of those things, and I never would have had that opportunity had I not left. If I had not been true to myself, which that's what it is when you leave. It's like you're going to listen to your gut. You're going to be true to yourself. Jehovah's never going to leave you. He'll be there for you regardless of what you do. And so
Yep.
that's
I
my
love
big
it.
thing.
No, I love it. I think that's great. I think tapping into those things that maybe you pushed aside for years because you felt guilt for not studying or going to a meeting or out in service instead of
Right.
doing your passions, like definitely do that. I think it's beautiful. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our little interview. And I thank you so much for sharing this again. I'm so thankful you got to be on here, and so thankful to have you as my aunt and my family. And I'm going to get
Thanks.
emotional.
I know,
um,
me too. But I just want to tell you too that I am so proud of you. You were so much stronger than I was when I left, and I'm so proud of you. You are really showing the strong, intelligent, wonderful woman you are, and you're going to be
Thank you.
blessed for it too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we love you. We're so thankful to have you in our lives. And I think that's where I'm going to end because I won't be able to talk anymore.
Alrighty.
This episode was definitely a pretty heavy one. It's a very dark place to be when you do leave this organization, and I want to thank everybody who sat here and supported my Aunt Patty during her telling of her story. Please know that if you do need help, if you are in the process of leaving and you are having these dark moments or thoughts, there is help out there for you, so do not hesitate to reach out to others or for help. And a reminder, if you have a story that you want to share as well, you can email me at athomewithalissa@gmail.com, and we can coordinate a time for you to share your story on this YouTube channel. If you are somebody who is not ready to share your story publicly, I totally understand that. I think I might start trying to incorporate a few videos here and there of maybe sharing some anonymous stories, so you're more than welcome to also send me an email with your story that I can start incorporating into those episodes. So again, I thank you so much for being here, for supporting these strong, resilient women who I am featuring on this channel to not only share their stories, but really reclaim their voices. And I appreciate all the support and love. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys next time.